the Milwaukee Cannibal, aka Jeffrey Dahmer. He went on a brutal killing spree, specifically targeting young boys and men. After murdering his victims, he would then proceed to use their corpses for necrophilia, cannibalism, and even make some of them his own trophies. It was later uncovered that Dahmer would puncture holes into the victims' skulls and pour acid into them, later turning them into so-called sex zombies. Dahmer carried out the deaths of 17 people. However, on July 22, 1991, Dahmer's soon-to-be 18th victim, Tracy Edwards, escaped from his clutches. Tracy and his friends are at a bar on a Monday night when Dahmer walks up to them, asking them to do a naked photo shoot in his apartment, and in return they receive $100 and a free beer. Now, Tracy reluctantly agrees, and when he arrives at Dahmer's apartment, he can't help but feel very uneasy. Now, the two have a small conversation before Dahmer tells him about his tropical fish tank. Once Tracy turns his head, however, Dahmer handcuffs one of Tracy's hands. Luckily, he moves his hand away before Dahmer could finish the job. Now, Dahmer then forces Tracy to take his shirt off, pressing his head against Tracy's chest. Once he listens for his heartbeat, Dahmer calmly states that he's going to eat Tracy's heart out of his chest. Now, during this moment, the last thing Tracy wants to do is provoke him, as Dahmer has a knife squeezed onto his skin. Tracy is then met with two choices: either jump out the window in Dahmer's two-story apartment, or stall Dahmer long enough to escape through his front door. He then proceeds to calm Dahmer down, reassuring him that they were actually really good friends and that he would never try to run away from him. Dahmer is then overjoyed, resulting in him having a clouded judgment, and lets Tracy grab a beer in his living room. Tracy then uses this opportunity, and while he's standing near the couch, strikes Dahmer in his face, causing him to lose his balance. Now, simultaneously, this gives Tracy enough time to rush for the door and run for his life. Later, Tracy explains that a deranged man imprisoned him and states that he spent many hours devising an escape plan. The officers then take Tracy back to Dahmer's apartment in order to retrieve the key to unlock Tracy's handcuffs. Once inside, they find Dahmer in a calm state where he allows them to enter his apartment while he gets the key. Now, while this is all happening, officers can't help but notice multiple Polaroid pictures falling out of one of Dahmer's drawers. Officers then inspect the pictures and uncover photos of human bodies in different stages of mutilation. Once Dahmer comes back, he notices the officers' disgusted faces and tries to fight them off to escape. Now, police easily subdue Dahmer and immediately arrest him. Dahmer then mutters under his breath, "For what I've done, I should be dead." In the following days, investigators make their way to Dahmer's gruesome apartment, where they discover many pieces of evidence, and the chief medical examiner states that scouring through the apartment feels more like destroying someone's museum. Examiners later found 4 severed heads in his kitchen, 7 bleached skulls in his closet, and 2 hearts in his fridge. And Dahmer's freezer consists of a human torso and a bag full of different organs. As a result, Dahmer then pleads guilty to 15 counts of first-degree murder and is given 16 life sentences. Surprisingly, 3 years later in 1994, Dahmer is killed by an inmate, Christopher Scarver. The two were tasked with cleaning the gym, and when Dahmer turned his back against him, Scarver struck him over the head with a 20-inch metal bar. Now, as a result, Scarver is then given 2 additional life sentences, and when he's asked why he killed him, he stated that Dahmer made him extremely uncomfortable, and he did not regret what he did. July 5th, 1985. 16-year-old Whitney Bennett wakes up late at night, drenched in blood, with an excruciating pain in her head. She then quickly notices that her room has been completely robbed. The young girl then screams for her parents, who quickly run over to find their daughter badly bruised and bloodied. They then notice tile iron left on the floor and a cut telephone cord. However, what caused this to happen in the first place? Or rather, who caused this to happen? Richard Ramirez, an infamous serial killer during the 1980s, who is known for breaking into houses, mutilating his victims, then leaving satanic symbols at their crime scenes. Many called him the Night Stalker. One ordinary summer night, Ramirez carefully crawls through Whitney's window and proceeds to repeatedly strike her over the head with a tire iron until she's no longer conscious. He later makes his way into the kitchen in order to find a knife to finish her off, luckily coming back empty-handed. He then proceeds to snoop around the room and ultimately decides to choke Whitney with a telephone wire. However, as he's strangling her, sparks start to fly from the cord, and Ramirez, who believes in Satanism, takes this as a sign of divine intervention. Basically, he believes that God is trying to save Whitney and that he needs to stop what he's doing and get out of the house. He lets go of the wire, rushes out of the house, and just minutes later, Whitney wakes up. Thankfully, Whitney recovers from the brutal encounter of the Night Stalker, but not without harm. The young girl gets over 400 stitches to close up the slashings to her scalp and experiences cosmetic surgery. About a month later, Ramirez returns to LA after visiting his brother in Arizona. However, he's completely oblivious to the fact that the story of the attack is being widespread on the news in Los Angeles. Now, Ramirez walks into a liquor store and encounters a crowd of elderly Hispanic women who begin calling him El Matador, which means the killer in Spanish. Ramirez quickly finds out that his face is displayed on the front page of every newspaper, so he frantically rushes out of the store. He then runs across the Santa Ana freeway, with his goal being to carjack as many people as possible, when thankfully a mob of people begin to surround him. Now Ramirez is chased for about 2 miles before one of the residents knocks Ramirez over the head with a metal bar. The mob proceeds to ruthlessly beat the killer until authorities arrive and take him in. Now 3 years pass, and Whitney testifies against Ramirez, and even though some of the details of the attack were vague due to Whitney's head injuries, Richard Ramirez was still found guilty of 13 murders and 11 sexual assaults. He was later put on death row for 23 years due to California's strict punishment laws, and soon died at the age of 53, with the cause of his death being cancer. However, the long-awaited death of the Night Stalker made me wonder how the victims reacted. Were they thankful that this mass murderer was dead? Or did they wish him to live out the rest of his years enduring harsh prison conditions? Or would they have preferred him to get the death penalty and be executed by only a few weeks or months after his sentencing? Let me know in the comments down below. Now thankfully, this case has a happy ending. Los Angeles County Detective Frank Salerno was one of the key people that ensured that Ramirez would be brought to justice. Now in 1993, his colleagues threw him a retirement party to celebrate his involvement in the police force for over 30 years. Friends, family, and many people from previous cases attended the party, including Whitney Bennett. Now at the party, Whitney met Frank's son, Mike Salerno, where the two meet and they immediately hit it off and go on to get married.